I'm thinking of, I had this workshop. I'm going to bring Dan to the screen as well. I did this workshop with some students once, and there's a prompt in there where people are invited to invent their own language, like, a hit dog will holler, or I know why a cage bird sings. And many years ago, one of the students, her refrain was, I know why birds' bones are hollow. One, I learned that birds' bones were hollow from a poetry class. But second, how it worked in her poem. And it makes me think of this in this moment now about one, being able to appreciate how all of these us as different creatures are created. I mean, literally. So the things that we worry about, or the things that we project onto other people, onto other communities, onto our loved ones, onto people outside of ourselves, we can only work off of what we think is going on. So the people who were worried about the birds' wings, and they were able to be healed. And then circling back to the conversation that Dan had about knowing that moment of brokenness and that moment of healing, but there's still a space in between that before and after where you need to figure out how to situate yourself. Gentlemen, you did all the things. You did all the things. I would leave the space for you to professionally pose any questions to one another. And I was so excited to see that we have these two animal narratives, and you went off and did other things with them. So before I keep rambling, anything you want to share with each other?
I'll let Dan go first because I got a couple for him.
Okay. Well, yeah, I have a couple of things. First of all, the college is about learning to learn. I make a huge deal of that on the beginning of every day because I teach courses like anatomy and physiology and comparative anatomy, which are, there's a lot of things. It can be a lot of memorization. And, I tell students that I know you're going to forget most of this after we're done with the class because memorization is short, usually short term. I said, but hopefully you're going to learn how you learn anatomy so that, if you have to come back to something later. So, I couldn't agree more with that. And by the way, you mentioned the St. Louis Zoo. I worked there as a keeper for a year when I was an undergrad because I grew up there. And so that was before they started doing all the embryo freezing and everything that they do now. But I was riveted by your stories. Yeah, I just I need to have an afternoon with Dr. Bert to nerd out on some of this stuff. Because, wow. I mean, I have a lot of students who are interested in vet medicine, a lot of students who've gone on to become veterinarians. And I also think it's really interesting because my parents were 40 and 45 when I was born. So they were more like grandparent age as I was growing up. And I am first generation college, but education was considered a valuable thing. And, we used to take little family trips and if I had a question about a rock formation or something and my dad didn't know the answer, which he usually didn't, we went and found a park ranger, who I could ask. And, it's that being okay with questions, being okay without knowing things. And it's okay to want to learn new things. And last, your comment about culture trumping strategy really resonated because that's the entire reason I started making art that's related to science. Because when I got interested in sex and gender diversity, I was working with an endocrinologist and we were going to try to write a book. And as soon as we got into it, I realized we didn't need another book on this topic. People had written all kinds of things on this. The problem was that the people who need to read it aren't reading it. Right. And the people who are going to read it, don't need another book on this. And so by making art that opens people's eyes to things like sexual diversity, I know because I've gotten notes from people who've seen the work that I've gotten through to people who, were not likely to pick up a book or take a class. And, art is, I think, a critical part of our culture. And, I just think that's I've never heard it phrased that way. I love that. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Dan. So we have this museum connection, which I almost jumped off my couch. I'm on my couch. I almost jumped off my couch when I found that we have this museum connection. So we definitely have to do that. aside from professionally, the fact that you delved into Buddhism, I've always wanted to, and just have not taken the time. It's been very superficial, very peripheral, but there was a time in my life when I needed to really refocus, and so I adopted a Swami, Swami Muktananda, and I got really deep into meditation. And it helped me during a time that it was a very difficult time for me. I mean, I can't say exactly what was going to happen, but it was very difficult. And my parents never knew. My sister didn't know. They learned, 10, 15 years afterwards.
Yeah, we didn't talk about things like that.
You just didn't. And I had these vascular migraine headaches when I was in college, to where the only way I could go to sleep was through hypnosis. And my parents didn't know that until my mother found out that I went to the doctor. My mom, as I said, was a nurse. And the doctor was like, "Well, I'll give you some Demerol to go to sleep." And I was like, I don't care what you give me. You give me some horse medicine. I need to go to sleep." And I didn't know that Demerol was addictive, right? I was in college. So I told my mom, yeah, they gave me, she was like, she was threatening to get on the next plane to come down to Alabama. I was like, my dad was like, calm down. And so what I appreciate from what you were saying is, even the characterization of religion and all these transcendental spiritual experiences that we have been placed and categorized even in our own United States now, where we condemn these practices, and we condemn religion and in a way in which, and I'm not saying that one is more important than the other, but the facts remain that there are more people that are Buddhists and Muslims than there are that are Christians, right? Those are facts, right? They're indisputable. And so adopting and understanding and appreciating other spiritualities has always been something that I've just questioned from the time that I was able to. So you struck me, it really keenly struck me when you talked about the and you stated, he said, "I'm not an expert, so wait a minute, calm down, don't start asking me hard questions." But me and how I adopted a Swami, and never met him, never personally talked with him, but just adopted the practices that helped me through some very difficult times.
Yep. Yeah, I can tell if I don't meditate in the morning, I can feel it in the afternoon, even if I don't remember it. I'll feel myself getting anxious or not being able to focus. And it's like, oh yeah, I know why. It's because I didn't take 10 minutes to sort of center myself in the morning.
Yeah, and we can talk about this because I've got a whole nother series of stories, but I know we're on time. The other thing was the reptiles and amphibians. So now we get into our animal nerdiness, right? And so, Dasha, just so you know, the nerdiest, weirdest people at any zoo are herps and amphibians. They are the weirdest and nerdiest.
Good to know. Good to know.
People that you're like, this girl or this guy, they know everything about this species, but we can't put them on camera because they'll just start nerding out, and people will be like, "What
are we still talking about toads? Is that
what we're talking about?" So said that, I just went right back to all my zoo days, all my zoo decades, where I was like, "Yeah, man, those hurt people." But here's the thing about, I'll finish with this, which is something that brings us back kind of circumspect. So when I was in graduate school, I worked on the northern spotted leopard frog, which is Rana pipiens pipiens. And growing up in Chicago, on the south side of Chicago, there was a park called Jackson Park, which was right off the lake in South Shore. And I remember visiting a little brook that had a pond, and they had turtles and frogs. And the frogs that one of my first encounter with animals in nature were these frogs and these turtles. And the frog was Rana pipiens pipiens. Mm-hmm. I invariably started studying them in graduate school.
Look at the universe.
Yep.
It was when I realized it, and I like the first couple of weeks I was in grad school, I was like, oh yeah, we doing some work with some frogs, right? I got to learn how to take I got to learn how to take blood out of a frog's heart without killing the frog.
Right.
Right. Okay. All right. I got that. I can do it. Look at your face. Just look at
Yeah,
your
one of the
right.
one of the
And then when I started reading up on it, I was like, this is the northern spotted leopard frog. So then I looked at the territory and it was Wisconsin, Minnesota, Illinois, Michigan. And I was like, and
How
I
could
pulled
this
up the
be?
picture and I was like, and I was looking at the frog and I looked at the picture and I was like, there was a little color variation, Dan,
Yep.
but that was the frog
Yeah.
that
And
I
you know,
saw
now,
as a kid
yeah, it's great.
in Jackson Park.
One of the guys, he was in graduate school at Kansas before me. He's now at the University of Texas. Did some of the original work that that was able to figure out that I think there's about a dozen different species that we used to think all belong to that one. So yeah, that's neat. That's a special example there.
It really is, dude.
I feel it. I feel a reptile tangent happening. I feel a frog tangent about to happen. But I wanted to ask both of you if there's a closing thought or something that you've heard that you want to impart with the folks, or anything you have coming up that you want to share.
I'll let Dan go first again.
Yeah, I just, I just think it's fascinating that, two people like Dr. Bert and myself that grew up under pretty different circumstances could converge in such a way. And I guess, there's just something about being reared to be curious and to remain curious that brings people together, even though, you're a third generation college grad. I'm a first generation college grad. We both grew up in big Midwestern cities, but Chicago and St. Louis are pretty different. I know St. Louis when I was growing up was it's better now, but it was a really, really racially segregated place. And I was lucky enough to go to a college prep school that actually had some people of color in it. Whereas if I'd went to the school I normally would go to in my neighborhood, I would have not even met anyone like that. So I just think it's fascinating to me that we can end up having so many commonalities coming from, Chicago and St. Louis are only 250, 500 miles apart, but I'm guessing that our backgrounds were pretty different.
Well, I would say that they're different, but I dare say that culturally there might have been some similarities, right?
Oh, I think there were, and they probably would not have recognized each other at the time, but absolutely, looking back, there's no doubt. I mean, the important stuff, which of course you started with, which is that education starts at home. That I think is definitely what's the starting point for me to be where I am.
Absolutely. It's so there's a lot of similarities. And so my final thoughts, or my parting thoughts, because I'm actually going to think about this again after we get off line. It's interesting to see how two people who you, Dasha, deemed should be together, but until I was able to focus on and Googled him, didn't realize all of the kind of the nuances that connected us. And so I think that what you're doing is tremendously important. It reminds me of something that happened here. It's still occurring in different parts of the United States, but it started out here as something called Mosaic Partnerships. And Mosaic was one where you took two people of vastly different backgrounds, perceived vastly different backgrounds, and put them together. Usually they were based on ethnicity, gender, backgrounds, where they lived. And then you created this relationship with them. And mine was with Paula Kiley, who's the retired public librarian. And we still keep in contact after all these years. And I think I was in the 2007 class or 2006 class. I can't remember now. It harkens me back to that we just don't allow ourselves to understand that culturally we have so many things that are different, where we are different, but there are so many practical applications to life that are exactly the same. We want the exact same ending, but we have different methodologies to how we get to that end. And we
Yes.
can't appreciate that because most people don't have the ability to say, if the three of us have to get to someplace by 3 o'clock, I want you to go by car. You want me to go by train. You want me to go by Uber. Who gives a doggone?
Because getting
As
there
long
by
as
3
we
is the
get
game.
there by 3. But
Right.
we've been processed and we've been told that, well, this should be the way that I want it to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just the fact that you're doing this, Dasha, I can't appreciate it anymore. I love you even more and appreciate your work even more. And Dan, don't worry, we will be reconnecting at some point, whether you come down here or we meet
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle or I come to you, or all three things can happen.
Yeah,
It was a
we'll
have
pleasure
to.
meeting you and hearing your story.
Most excellent.
Same.
Thank you both. And that's Dr. Bert, that's exactly what the idea is. And I will also add in there, from a line of poetry. I'm just saying, all this started from one line of poetry. I will absolutely throw it on the soapbox as well. But I appreciate you both being so generous with your time today. I want
Thank
to
you.
share the poem that this initial line comes from, and I'll definitely make sure that we stay connected because I think you're absolutely right. There's going to be some conference between, if not the three of us, definitely you two. Oh my goodness. I can only imagine what you two are going to cook up, what you've already spun out from your own experience. So thank you both for being here. I appreciate both of your time. And this poem, this line, life is like a broken winged bird that cannot fly, comes from a poem by Langston Hughes called Dreams. Hold fast to dreams, for if dreams die, life is a broken winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams, for when dreams go, life is a barren field frozen with snow. Thank you to our guests today who have definitely given us all the reasons and all of the stories and all the reminders that holding on to dreams, light as they may feel, are our grasp onto what's possible, on being the bird that is rejuvenated and healed and not broken and grounded, because life is going to be difficult. It's a human condition. Being centered in the right now is our chance to soar. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time on Alignment.